and happy Easter to everyone. I hope you are all having a beautiful Sunday wherever you find yourselves. And thank you so much for joining us on Escape to Nature this beautiful Sunday. Currently, we are in Djuma at Gowrie Dam with the help of our wonderful Zoomies on the Djuma Dam Cam. But of course, as many of you know, my name is Lisa and I am the waterhole naturalist, keeping an eye on Okokoyo as well as Gowrie Dam, and hopefully we'll see a lot of animals today. So far we've got some impalalas, as well as some nyalas, which I'm very excited for. I have to be honest with you. Yes, it is something we see a lot of the times on Escape to Nature and on safari. But it is really good weather today. Hopefully we've got some predators lurking about as well, which I don't wish upon the impalas or the nyalas, but I mean at the end of the day, if we can see a kitty cat, that would not be the worst thing. But for those of you that were with us on Sunrise Drive, I'm sure you know that we saw a lot of predators, including Marips with a kudu kill, the lions trying to hunt. So it really has been an epic morning. And of course, if you missed that, you can always just check out the highlights a bit later. But you never know. Hopefully we also get lucky with some predators today. Yesterday we got to see the cheetahs with Andrew, as well as some elephants. Well, an elephant here in Djuma and a few in Okokoyo. But whatever we find today will be an absolute blessing. Perhaps we see the Easter Bunny. Oh, lots of excitement. What's happening? And good morning, and thank you for your beautiful comment. Believe me, I am just as happy to spend my Easter Sunday with all of you, and of course with our wonderful directors in FC, as well as our Naughty Tech team. It really is going to be an awesome day, whether we see a lot of animals or not that many. I mean, this in itself is already such a privilege. Just spending some time with the impalas, the nyalas, the sounds. Oh, what a blessing. But as I say, it's fairly good weather. It's rather overcast today in Djuma. But speaking of which, let's take a look at today's weather forecast to see what we can expect. Woo! 30 degrees Celsius today in Sabi. So it seems like it might not be overcast the whole day, but just as a warning, it is raining in our other locations, so you might be stuck with me for the whole Escape to Nature. I hope you're fine with that. But of course, we'll work in some good conversations, as well as some quizzes. Yesterday we spoke a little bit about the Trails Guide Manual and some of the things that us naturalists actually have to study and practice when we are trying to obtain our qualifications. So we'll definitely discuss some of that as well. But as always, we are live, we are interactive, and we love hearing from you. So please do send through any questions, any comments, any suggestions even. You're more than welcome to get in touch with us. Let me know what you are looking forward to today. If you have any other questions about myself, about the locations, or really about the beautiful animals that we get to witness and observe out here. Oh, where are you running to? Lots of excitement under the nyalas today. Those impalas are like, dude, just calm down. It's Sunday. You're embarrassing us. Just take it easy. Perhaps the Nyalas are on an Easter egg hunt today. And speaking of which, remember this afternoon on Sunset Safari, we will also be going on a bit of an Easter egg hunt. Woo! There's the lesser spotted Homo sapiens. Just returning from Sunrise Safari. Doing a bit of photo bombing. But as I say, the naturalists will all be having a bit of a adventure this afternoon. So definitely tune in for this. It'll be happening this afternoon on Sunset Safari. I'm definitely going to be watching. I'm very curious as to what they will find. But our people in FC are so adorable. This morning I walked into my office and I had a little Easter egg package on my table. So I actually wish they hid it from me. But I'm not very good with those, so I would probably have missed out on Escape to Nature. Just looking for my Easter eggs. Ooh! Apparently there are some hidden in my office. You see, you shouldn't tell me this because now I'm going to be... I'll neglect the show when our viewers and... No. Focus, Lisa. Look at the animals. Lenny, good morning. You would like to know if I'm wearing my Easter outfit. You know, Morgan and I were very tempted to dress up as something, but then we both realized we don't really have anything. I don't even have a t-shirt or anything with a bunny on it or anything like that. So, sadly, no. I'm just dressed as a normal citizen, Lenny. I apologize for disappointing you, but I can, I'll be here in spirit as an Easter bunny or something. But no, unfortunately, no interesting outfits or anything. Jarrett and Max are also not here, so unfortunately we couldn't force them to dress up as the Easter bunnies. But luckily we've got the animals to look at. And how funny would it be if we actually see a scrub hare today? For the most part, they are of course nocturnal. But you never know. It's fairly overcast today. We might have a lot of activity. Leopard lovers, so good to hear from you. Was Gowrie Dam bigger than I thought? It was, I can tell you this much, it's very deceiving looking at the camera. But to be honest with you, it was actually smaller than I had anticipated, Leopard lover. And as I say, it's very, you see one thing on the camera, and of course we can't get all of the angles on the actual dam cam. But driving over the dam wall and everything, that was just really an experience, to know that, okay, well, I watch this on a daily basis and look at all of the animals. It's definitely a different experience. Oh, hello, little one. To actually see it for myself. But thank you for your question, Leopard lover. I had a wonderful time in the Sabi Sand. And of course, a wonderful time with Tess and Panda on Drive. Oh, just look at that beautiful whitetail. Of course, we know a lot of the antelopes. They've got these beautiful white flashing tails. And that actually has a purpose. When they are being chased or when they do feel provoked or anything like that, they'll just lift that tail and in hopes that it actually scares off the predator. I have to be honest with you, I've not seen it very successful at times, but everything out here, of course, does have a reason. And I was actually having a conversation with my better half the other night as well. And, because we spoke about that one video clip where the kudu is, using his horns and rubbing it in the mud and everything. And he asked me, why is that kudu doing that? And I said, well, we'll never really know. everything out here, we've got our own interpretations. We think it's for this reason. It might be for a completely different reason. But of course, a lot of the antelopes, especially the males that have the horns, they'll do that just to make themselves appear bigger. But we'll never truly know why all of this is happening out here. Why these antelopes have those flashy white tails at the bottom. Ooh, goodness, it's Sunday. There's no need for that. As I mentioned, these beautiful antelopes that we are looking at. Oof, that one's got a massive cut in her ear. Obviously it's healed already, but it's like literally split in half. So if you look directly center screen, if she looks up again, there we are, her left ear. No, sorry, her right ear. Actually both, but more so the right ear has got this massive split in it. That's very interesting. What happened to you? I don't know who of you saw that one Inyala literally just devoured one of those hibiscus flowers. Which of course happens. That is what summertime is for, not just all of the nutritional value in the grass and in the trees and everything. Because Inyalas are mixed feeders, so they'll feed on grass as well as flowers and leaves and things like that. But of course it does become limited in the winter time. The flowers are not going to be around. A lot of the grass will, really become very, very pale. But while there is some yummy flowers around to eat, why not? Oh, and this little one is just too precious for words. You almost just can't see it. Yes, you adorable little thing. And I know the other day Ralph delved into the origin of the Inyala name. And again, just like everything else in nature, we can interpret as much as we want. And we all have different experiences when it comes to animals and what they do and why they do it. For me personally, I've always thought that Nyalas were named Nyalas for the fact that it's derived from the Shangaan language, which refers to onion, due to the white rings that they have on their body. But everyone else has a different experience. We'll never truly know why they are called this. I always find it so fascinating with these antelopes specifically. A lot of the antelopes, the males will have horns, and that is for the most part how you see, okay, that's the male. But with a Nyala, it's just so intriguing. The males are much more shaggier and fluffy. You can see there's a definite difference in their coloration. And this is still a young male. His horns are still going to grow more and curve a little bit more. And he's going to become a little bit darker. This one coming in on our left hand side, also a young male. You can see a little bit darker coloration and those itty bitty horns on the head. Of course, antelopes are not born with their horns. That would not be a very fun experience for mom. So they only start getting the horns from a year on or so. You can see this tiny one as well. I cannot tell you if this is a male or female. But I have to tell you, I'm just so happy that we are having so much activity already in Djuma. Again, yes, I know it's antelopes. I know it's a general game. We tend to see them rather often. But anything out here is just so special to see. All of the bokkies, the birds, the flowers, the grass. Benjamin, you would like to know, how do we differentiate between kudu and Nyala female? And I know that can be very confusing due to both antelopes being striped animals. They have these big ears. For me personally, Benjamin, the first thing I go with is the coloration. Nyala's got a much more red coloration. And for me personally, I find that Nyalas have those spots for the better part, where the kudus just have the stripes. But again, not always. Animals are all different in various parks, in various reserves. So the first and obvious thing for me is coloration. Secondly, size. A kudu is definitely bigger than a Nyala. Of course, a fully grown kudu female or cow. And then for me, another thing that I look at first off, kudus have these big round ears, and so do Nyala, but kudus have more round ears, almost like Mickey Mouse. I call them the Mickey Mouse antelope. So for me, those are the three biggest indicators, Benjamin. I hope that helps. A kudu is a way more grey color, and then the Nyalas are these very prominent red colors. But both of them do feed on leaves. They do have a very similar alarm call as well if they do spot a predator, which I'm not even going to try to imitate for you. That is the one I've never been good at. Oh, good morning. Thank you so much for our Zoomy showing us the parrots. Yes, good morning to you. Aren't you lovely coming out Oh, and you can just see that perfect green coloration as soon as the sun hits them a little bit. I don't think I've actually ever been able to photograph a parrot. I should actually look on in my folder and my archives of all the photographs I've taken of wild animals. But these ones, I don't think so. Especially when they're nesting, it's quite tricky. Because for the most part, they can be in the crevice or in the actual nest. Now that hole was either a natural crevice or it was created by something like a woodpecker or a barbet. Just incredible how all of these animals recycle and they coexist. Definitely something we can learn from them. And as I said, it is a nesting pair that lives here. So both male and female can be on the outside. Sometimes they switch. For the most part, the female does the incubation, but it can be done by both. There has actually been cases where both of them do assist with the incubation. But if you ask me, I think there's already chicks in there that have hatched. And it would be brilliant to see them. Oh, there's the other one. Good morning, beautiful. Now these are the brown-headed parrots, if you are not too familiar with them. Oh, just beautiful. Look at that coloration. Marula Shortcake, what an interesting name. You would like to know what's the difference between these parrots and domestic ones. I don't think there are a lot of differences. I mean, we've learned by now that, a lot of the birds can actually be domesticated. Something like an Indian myna, parrots in the wild as well. It has happened before. So I think if you've got that chick from a very young age, you are most probably going to teach it a few things. But I can't speak from personal experience. I actually have not had a brown-headed parrot and tried to domesticate it. Good morning, kissy for you. But of course, anything out in the wild, they've got different behaviors, different instincts. If you look at an animal that is domesticated, for the most part, they are always going to have food. They'll always know where the food comes from, at what times they are getting fed. Out here in the wild, it's different. It's survival of the fittest. They have to find food. Anything can catch their chicks if they actually find them. So it's a lot more risk out here. And again, that goes for birds, mammals, reptiles. And that is why we have to be so careful when we do actually adopt animals that are meant to be in the wild. It's a massive risk. And it's life-changing for that animal. I can speak from personal experience as well. I've helped rear a baby warthog. I've helped rear squirrels, a Varu eagle owl. Oof, Dreaming Wild, you are on it today. Our Zoomy today is loving the birds. I love it. This one, of course, is a lilac-breasted roller, which I'm super excited about. As I always say, even if there's no mammal or reptile activity, there's always birds. Even if you cannot find them, you can always listen to them, look at their nests. Aren't you just beautiful? And this is one of the birds I love photographing, but unfortunately in the Sabi Sands, we saw a lot. A lot of them, interestingly enough, sat on the power lines. Like literally every 250 meters you would drive, there was a lilac-breasted roller. Eventually, Marshall, my better half, said, this feels like deja vu, because they are literally, it's like they've been positioned there. But unfortunately, I was not able to get a good photograph of one with the sunlight hitting it perfectly. And they were always in the shade or on a power line. And these are definitely one of my favorite birds out here. One of these days we will not be seeing them anymore. But they are insectivores. They are brilliant hunters, in fact. And you'll often see them perching on an open branch. And they'll have a look at the soil, look at different insects coming and going, and then they'll go for that. But just like everything else here in nature, never put them in a box. Never limit them. They don't just feed on insects. If that lilac-breasted roller spots a lizard or anything like that, a skink, and they are able to hunt it, they will definitely go for it. I am just still blown away at how green and lush and just vibrant the bush is. Generally around this time, it will slowly start transitioning, because the winter time really starts end of April, beginning May in the bushveld. But I think it will be a little bit delayed. You can definitely feel the temperatures dropping though, that much I can tell you. But with regard to the actual food availability for the animals, the grass, the leaves, the flowers, insects, they are definitely still having the time of their life.
It's that exciting egg hunting time of the year again.
Treasure hunt, here we come!
This year for Easter, we are challenging our naturalists to a special Easter treasure hunt, which will of course feature the Easter scrub hare.
I think I want this one!
Come along as they search for clues, solve riddles, and hunt for a chocolate-flavored Easter prize on safari. Hop into Easter this year with Wild Earth.
It's really so surreal to think that just a week ago I was here in the Sabi Sands, sitting on the porch, having coffee, watching the sunrise. And it literally is like you enter a new world. It's not that far away from home. In total, it's about, give or take, 7 or 8 hours drive from where I live, at least, in Johannesburg. But it's literally like you enter a new world. As soon as you head out of Gowrie Gate, it's almost like you go through that closet of Narnia. And it's sad. I was really sad to have left. I have to be very honest with you. But I was so, so grateful that we did get to go and got to see everything. But just a week ago, I was right here. Not here necessarily at Gowrie Dam, but just in this beautiful area that we know as the Bushveld. Jessica, good morning. Thank you so much for your question. You would like to know if the males ever hurt the impalas when they are rutting. So rutting is more about, establishing the dominance between the males and then sort of forming their harems and so forth. So their focus is more on the other males, but it has happened before. I've seen it personally on my previous game reserve that I worked at. This one male got so excited, and I don't know, I think the female was unfortunately just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And he actually impaled her on her side. And we continued observing that female. Luckily, she was fine. But it happens. I know the other day, Tess also told a story where, a male impaled another male right through his actual neck. And that male also was fine. By some miracle, he survived. So it can happen, yes. But that being said, for the most part, the focus is on the other males, taking them on and then sparring with them. But then after that comes establishing the harems. And then they lose a lot of condition. It's rather hilarious to watch that. Because those males become so focused on just mating. And of course, they are exerting a lot of energy. The focus is out of the window. Food is no longer important. It's just all about mating. But it's definitely possible with any animals, really. With lions, with elephants. If that animal is unfortunately in the wrong place at the wrong time, then it's possible. But their focus is not to injure the females. Not at all. But it's an interesting time to be watching this, as the impalas were hunching down at night as well at my aunt's house. They would literally come lie down on the lawn because they know it's safe there. But the one evening before that happened, they were also, you could hear them rutting and my boyfriend was very, very, very confused for a long time. He said, "What's making that sound?" I said, "It's impala." He said, No, that's not impala. That sounds like a possessed lion or something. So it's definitely very interesting to be observing these animals. And that's why I say, always be open to everything. Yes, of course, we are allowed to have our favorite animals. But every animal in their own right is very intriguing and fascinating and just brilliant to observe overall, whether it's mating behavior they are displaying or sparring behavior, whatever is going on in that season with those animals, there's always something to observe and to learn about them. It's time for a toilet break. This one actually looks very uncomfortable. It's interesting when you look at impala, for instance. Have you seen when they defecate or when they are urinating? They make sure they splay the legs. It's almost like when when you are on safari as well, or some of the naturalists, and of course there's no toilets out here. Every tree is a lavatory. And you make sure you splay your legs. You don't want to splash on anything. But have any of you seen when wild dogs urinate? They literally step all over it. And that is to mark their areas as they are walking along as well. Even lions. I'm sure you've seen a lot on safari. A lot of lions, especially after they've eaten. They'll just urinate right where they are when they are napping. And they don't care. Again, that comes down to dominance, hierarchy, the food chain. So it's definitely very interesting. And that's why I always say there's always something to observe and to learn about these animals. And just being able to do what we are doing is just, it's such a massive blessing. Suzanne, you are saying you love my rutting sound. Thank you. I've been practicing for years. And it's actually not very difficult. Just imagine you've had a little bit too much to drink the night before. That is what I always think of when they are making those noises. And impalas are much like the lilac-breasted roller we saw earlier on. It's this beautiful, dainty creature. Very, very delicate until they open their mouth. Because even a lilac-breasted roller, it's this stunning bird, and then they've got this That's literally what they sound like when they are calling. So it's not as beautiful as a woodlands kingfisher or a lot of the orange-breasted bushshrike that we are now hearing. That it's a little bit more crass, I guess is the word. I mean, a crow I can understand, even a hadida. Their call matches their actual looks. But an impala, not so much. And it's always funny, I know a lot of the naturalists talk about this, but if you are on safari with guests that have come for their very first safari in their life and you stop, it was always my favorite. You stop on the open plains and somewhere there's going to be impalas, especially during this time of the year. And the sun is setting, everyone's got a glass of wine or something, and you just hear that. It's quite intimidating if you don't know what it is. Much like a Kori busted sound. I mean, the first time I heard a Kori busted bird alarm calling or just calling, I thought, what on earth is that? It sounds like a constipated leopard or just something. And it goes without saying for all of the animals. Elephants, lions. If you do not know what you are listening to, it's quite intimidating. But speaking of calls and everything, we do not often hear these beauties vocalizing, but I will share their call with you. It's very beautiful. This is what these guys sound like, the brown-headed parrots. Isn't that cute? You see, that matches the bird or the creature. But a lot of these other animals, and definitely let me know as well if you've got some animals wherever you find yourself in the world where when you look at the animal and they open their mouth, you're like, no. That's not right. That does not match your face, your beauty. Or if you think there's some animals that we see on safari in Africa that you think, why do they make this call? It does not make sense for 1 second. Especially something like an Inyala and kudu. I mean, kudus are bigger, but when they are making that barking sound, when they are alarm calling, it's terrifying, especially at night if it's silent and peaceful and you just hear this. I'm not even going to try do that, but it's quite terrifying. I love when we always have these weird conversations. Then the whole FC is also, making all of these weird sounds. Morgan is saying that if a giraffe was audible, it would make like a and that is also something that there's a lot of debate on. Do giraffes vocalize? And again, some of you are going to sit now and say, yes, Lisa, of course they vocalize. But have you actually heard it? And I've only ever once in my life heard a giraffe vocalizing. And I'm very particular who I share this story with because a lot of people don't believe it. But it was a mom and a baby. It was still a very, very young baby. The umbilical cord was still drying up on the stomach. And it sort of swayed off a little bit or veered off a little bit. And the mom made a very, very, very faint whistling sound. Now, I may have imagined that. Maybe that was the case. But that is the only time to date that I've actually heard a giraffe vocalizing. And as soon as she did that, the baby actually turned around and went back to her. But again, all of us have different experiences. Animals are all different. Yes, there's the basics for them with regard to their gestation periods, how much they weigh, all of that. But just like people, everything around them influences them. And as I say, perhaps I had some amarula in my coffee that day that I just imagined it. But it was a very interesting moment indeed. But that's a good point, Morgan. Of course, we don't hear giraffes vocalizing too often. But if you could think of a call for a giraffe, what would it be? A high-pitched whistling sound, a roaring sound, a rumbling sound? I always say they are the hippies of the bush, so perhaps it would be like more of a a peaceful call. It really is incredible to think. I mean, for us, yes, if you are standing in the bush and all of a sudden you hear these strange noises at night, that must be terrifying. But it's incredible to think that impalas, as soon as they pick up a certain scent in the air, as soon as they hear like a they know that's a leopard lurking about. But how do they know that? It's mind-blowing. And yesterday we did do a little bit of a quiz on the Trails Guide manual. But something that I would like to know from all of you, that I'm sure many of you have seen on various safaris, but what are some of the animals that we can listen to indicate predators to us? Some of them are birds, some of them are primates, some of them are antelope. But I would love to hear from you. What are some of the things that we look out for or that we follow specifically to find predators or to go check out an area? And often then, you do find the predator, or you just find very fresh scats or tracks of either lions, leopards, a lot of birds, primates. They will also indicate snakes. I've actually had quite a few sightings where I've located snakes in the grass due to certain birds calling, primates, a small little creature that lives in a tree. Yes, you see, I love this. FC loves participating. Tadiwa, the lovely voice in my ear, saying, isn't one of them a Franklin? Yes, indeed, T. They are very good indicators. Sometimes they are just being dramatic. I mean, I've been been on many safaris where you're like, oh my goodness, what are you even shouting about? But yes, definitely, Franklin would definitely be one of them. There's quite a few other bird species as well. And not just to predators, specifically when you're on foot. There's some birds that can definitely indicate buffaloes, rhinos. We actually saw some of those birds earlier on the impala. Goodness, Lisa, let us English. Good morning, Terrapins. Now, this is Terry and Teresa. We know them very well. They are usually on the island that's way more off to the right, closer to the dam wall. But of course, that has been covered by water now. So they have relocated to this tree stump. And they've got a very weird relationship. I mean, often, I've tried counseling them and consulting with them. A lot of the times you'll hear Terry complaining to Dewey the hippo. But for the most part, this is what they do. They've been married for a very long time. And they are a typical married couple. Just basking in the sun, minding their own business. Every now and again, Teresa will tell Terry, can you please just make sure you get your shell clean today? And he's just like, ugh, woman, stop whining. But often we see Terry, just chatting to Dewey, trying to get some advice. Not that I think Dewey is the best one to get advice from. Dewey's not married. He's got a lot of girlfriends. Theodore, good morning. Thank you so much for getting in touch with us. Can we hold a terrapin? You can, but you are going to need a lot of sanitizer after that because they stink. This is, ugh. I mean, I've only I think once or twice, that I actually had to move one out of the road, because when it does rain profusely and when the roads are looking like a lot of them still are in the Sabi Sands, the terrapins move and they sort of just go lie in a puddle. And you don't always know that they are there. You are just a normal human being driving on the road. And so often you do have to sort of check and drive slowly before you just go through those puddles, because they are water creatures. They just go chill in them. And so once or twice I have actually moved them just out of the road, on the busier roads specifically. You know, of course, it's not always advised to be handling wildlife, but you don't want them to get crushed. And you can, but you are not going to be holding your wife's hand after that, because you will stink, believe me. And that is also, you know, terrapins are, of course, freshwater turtles, basically. And they do feed off the ticks and the parasites from the other animals. But very rarely have I actually seen a bird of prey or even a predator feed on a terrapin. That is not something you will see too often. Oh, we've got a hammerkop. So you can, but you're gonna stink. Good morning. Yes, you. This is one of the weirdest birds. Just look at that bill and the actual head. And this is referred to as a hammerkop, a hammerhead, for obvious reasons. But we've actually not seen a jacana in quite some time, which makes me sad. They are my favorite birds. But even these guys, they are very, very fascinating. If you are not too familiar with what a hammerkop nests look like, please do yourself a favor and go research that. It's hilarious. They obviously have not seen how a lot of the weavers do it, very neatly and organized. That is not at all their style. But you can see he's just looking for some aquatic critters, looking for some breakfast or brunch by now, actually. Doing his best to hide from us. Alrighty, Hammerkop, if you do not want to play along, we will go check out the animals in Okokoyo. Good morning, Oryx and Zebra and Wildebeest, all of our loyal visitors. Just look at this gloomy weather. What is happening? Not even a little bit of sun for us today, which is fine. Weather is always a very interesting thing when it comes to animal behaviors and patterns that they follow. So it's going to be interesting to see how many animals we see today at Okokoyo, as well as what animals. Because you never know, in weather like this, a lot of your predators will actually be more active, move around. However, I don't know if there even is still any predators left in Okokoyo. We've not seen some in quite some time. But this is not the only area there are animals in this beautiful park. So this waterhole is known as Okukuyo. It's the largest salt lake in Africa, but this actual location we are currently in Namibia is known as the Etosha National Park. So there's a lot more waterholes for the animals. There's other areas where they can venture off for food. So they are not always restricted just to this waterhole. But you never know when the weather is like this. Let me actually just show you what what it looks like all around. It is very ominous. But it's interesting also to see, when we do experience this sort of weather. For me specifically, I found this in the bushveld. The animals just have an absolute blast. They're running around and jumping around. I mean, for me too, I have to be honest with you. Whenever the weather was like this on safari, I would completely lose my mind. I think it's something in the air. Like when it's full moon, a lot of people howl at the moon. For me, it comes when the weather is like this. I just become an absolute child.
Wild Earth's mission is an expensive one, but we know that our live experience is important to so many people that cannot afford to pay for it. We have added a donate button to our website. By donating, you are directly helping us share our free nature experiences with the world. We want Wild Earth to reach children, budding conservationists, and the less fortunate. A little money goes a long way. You can make a difference to someone today.
Yes, that's what I thought, Springbok. Water's probably a little bit cold. But perhaps there are some of you, that do keep an eye on the Djuma Dam Cam and on the Okukuyo waterhole. even when we are not live with them. So if you know of any sightings that we have here that I may have missed, please definitely tell me. Of course, all of these cameras are also available either on the app or on YouTube. I actually wish I could devote more time on watching the cameras, but unfortunately I am a human being that needs to sleep at night. It's wonderful to hear the guinea fowl, the zebras in the distance. And it's definitely going to be interesting, to see in the next 2 hours who else will show up. Will we see any elephants, rhinos, lions? Because it's very interesting, gloomy, ominous weather today. So perhaps it will be a little bit more peaceful. A lot of animals might feel that they don't need to constantly quench their thirst and cool off. There they go. We'll have to wait and see who comes to visit us next. You can see there's one pied crow off to our right, close to the water. You can hear the guinea fowls. Woo! That impala has got a spring in its step. So this animal that's still contemplating, should I, shouldn't I? That is an oryx, also one of the flagship species for areas like this. And it is in fact the national animal of Namibia. So Namibia is the country that we are currently observing, which is not in South Africa, it's just north of South Africa. But you can find them quite frequently in this sort of regions. They are made for dry, hot, vast areas. And they are not at all water dependent. So it's interesting when we do see them coming to the water so many times. The oryx, the springbok. But I guess if you have availability of something, definitely make use of it while you can. Oh man, I wanted this water hole for myself. Look at all these silly animals coming along.
Fort Bailey was some was looking up too. That's the antelope, the oryx,
Ooh, Morgan is asking me if I was an antelope, what colorful, cool markings would I have? I would definitely like the war paint of an oryx. That's definitely one for me. And then, I want something funky. I want like stripes, but I also want leaf patterns on my body. That's interesting, Morgan. What would yours be? What would our viewers be? If you could be like an antelope, what interesting markings would you have on your body? I would definitely say like some leaf shapes, that type of design. And then I could actually ambush the leopards and the lions. I think they're still going to urinate on me and then BAM! Surprise! I'm an antelope.
So what's the one, the brown face something? Or is it red face? What was the one that was face?
It's the red face. Sable face. There was a red face. Yeah. Red. Red face. Heart. Heart. Yeah. Heart. Red heart something.
Woo, that one's got an impressive set of horns. Can you imagine that that antelope impales you? Mrs. Walrus, you are saying that there were lions here last night. That is brilliant. Thank you so much for that. How many were they? What were they up to? Were they here briefly? How long were they here? You see, this is what I say. I need to observe the cameras more at night, but I know a lot of the action happens only later at night. Other viewers have told me that as well. And of course, you know, when it's nighttime here, for a lot of you, it's daytime. I wish I was an elephant, that I could still be doing something and also rest at the same time. So for those of you that missed it, Mrs. Walrus did just tell us that there were some lions here last night. And I would love to know from you, please, how many were they? How long were they here? Were they in good condition? Were you able to get a good look at them? Or I know it's much more difficult at night with this camera, because we don't have IR on it. But very interesting and good to know that the predators are already coming round. Hopefully one of these days we'll get to see them on Escape to Nature as well, very soon. Oh, calm down. Dramatis. Being a little dainty Pavonia. Ooh. The whole Namibia zebras also just showed up. Out of nowhere. Ooh, and we've got some kudus. Let's see if Oki the calf is amongst them. If you have no idea what I'm referring to. The other day we saw our very first kudu calf, and we decided to name it Oki. Let me just have a closer look here. So you can see the kudus are significantly bigger than the nyalas that we saw earlier on in Djuma, but both do belong to the antelope family. It can be quite confusing, as both of them do have stripes, but as I say, for me, good indicators are the ears, the coloration, the size. Good morning, excuse us, we are just doing the morning patrol.
safaris in there and the smaller. Maybe up above a mosquito so people actually in the
But if you did miss it earlier on, I would love to know from all of you, what are some of the creatures that we listen to find snakes and some of the bigger games such as rhinos, buffaloes, even leopards and lions. Some of them are birds, some of them are primates. What do we listen for when we are on safari? Whether you are driving or walking, some of these animals can be very, very good indicators. Some of them are actually on screen right now. It's difficult to see them, but you can hear them. And if you are perhaps new to Escape to Nature, this is literally where we just take some time, sit back, relax. Ooh, that one zebra is very tiny at the back. But we literally just take some time just to observe these animals and listen to all of them, and listen to the bird calls, the different vocalizations from the mammals. And how lucky are we to be doing that? But as you can hear, we are having a lot of silent moments today. And generally that is just to take Mother Nature in, but really it's because I'm bouncing around my office looking for some Easter eggs. No, not really. But speaking of which, this afternoon on Sunset Safari, we will also be having an Easter egg hunt. The various naturalists will be out and about as always, looking for all of the beautiful creatures, but whilst doing that, they will also be having an adventure of their own for Easter. So definitely do join us for that this afternoon. I think as always it's going to be a lot of fun. I will definitely be tuned in for that. And as I say, I still am looking for my Easter eggs in my office. I feel like I should have had a clue, like as to how many I'm looking for. No. No. No one is allowed in my office. I'm the only one looking for them. Just for today. No, but definitely do join us for Sunset Safari. I wonder what they'll find. And I wonder who hid it for everyone. I don't think Rolf will be able to participate, because Rolf is stationary with his camera in the bush. And I don't know if there's someone to actually hide his treasures for him. But it's going to be interesting to see how things unravel. Is it going to be sweeties? Will it perhaps be something else, like elephant poop? Lenny, you've got it. Indeed, vervet monkeys is definitely one of the best indicators to use specifically for lion and leopard. They do indicate snakes as well, but for me personally, in my experience, I've used many a vervet monkey to find leopards specifically. And when they alarm call, they make that meow, 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 meow. And generally, as soon as you see them sitting in a tree, you'll see them all staring in one specific direction. And that is, for the most part, where the leopard will be, or the lions. So you are definitely correct with that one. Thank you, Lenny. But who else? Which birds? Which other creatures in the bush are good indicators for finding leopards, lions, buffaloes, rhinos? And again, you know, this is not just specifically pertaining to when you are on foot. Even if you perhaps find yourself in Africa in a national park going on safari, there's always something to listen to. It's not just necessarily that you have to find the tracks and then you can only start tracking the animal. There's a lot of things we can use in the bush if we are just a little bit more open-minded.
Thanks to our wonderful Wild Earth explorers, Wild Earth Kids is back. Your monthly subscriptions have allowed us to relaunch Wild Earth Schools on a weekly basis, every Wednesday for the first hour of the Sunset Safari.
You guys bring a smile to my face every single day.
Sign your class up for a special virtual field trip to Africa, because touching the lives of the future protectors of our Earth truly matters.
Good afternoon to you all. What a great start we have to Escape to Nature. We're sitting here with wild dogs, and they all just got up and had a huge greeting ceremony. It was incredible. And now they have all just gone slightly flat again. Well, not flat. At least they're just sitting down and not flat. Anyway, good morning. My name is Lauren. I do have Rian on camera. We're going to spend some time with these wild dogs on this special Easter Sunday. Happy Easter Sunday to you all if you celebrate. If you don't, then just a happy Sunday. We're glad to have you on board with us here. Madikwe Game Reserve is in the northwest province of South Africa, and it's right on the Botswana border. We can actually broadcast using the Botswana network, and we can see Botswana. If we go to certain parts of Madikwe Game Reserve, we can actually hear their parties over the border. So it's very, very close to Botswana. But of course, Madikwe Game Reserve is fenced, so there's no chance that these dogs will ever just stroll into Botswana, that's for sure. But they are right now on the Makanyane concession. And that's very fitting because the wild dogs are called Makanyane in this area, the Swana language. So we're on the wild dog property. We are on your property, guys. Yes, and we have you all to ourselves. Delightful. We had these dogs this morning, and to be honest, it's just so nice to have dogs. Our camp is about a 3-minute drive from here, and I'm pretty sure they hunted within our camp last night. Well, in the early hours of the morning, and our drive started a bit too late and we missed it, and we heard the hyenas, but then we didn't realize it was dogs. Whoa, guys, where are you going? There is, oh, we've got another one, a straggler. It's the alpha male, I think. Where's everybody going? Are we just repositioning to sleep somewhere else? Oh no, sorry, I think that might be the alpha female. Apologies, I'll need to get a better look. They've got different ones collared in different packs. Okay, that means repositioning for us. They were snoozing really quietly just moments ago. But the road is just here. Oh no, they're completely on the move. Oh, sorry, Rihanna, keep throwing you into the bush. Another straggler. This one's got a lot of white in its coat. Ah, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, let me try this again. Okay, they ran this way. I see an elephant as well. We're not going to be able to off-road, it is just so thick in there. You can see white tails. But there is a road, so let's just see if we can jump on that road and catch up with them. I can see them. Yeah, I've got them. Noah, you went to a game reserve yesterday, and it's looking so thick. Noah, which game reserve did you go to? It is still pretty thick. It's definitely thinning out in Madikwe, I have to say. It's definitely thinning out. But please do tell us which game reserve you went to. I'm not sure what it's like in the Juma side. It was very thick when I was there last, but it's funny, as soon as the cold temperatures come, the bush really starts to change. Doesn't take long for it to get thick with the first onset, the first water, and then the reverse also. It doesn't take long for it to thin out, if the temperatures are cold enough. Aha, doggies. Look, this one's in the bath. This one is literally just laid down in the water. How cute is that? You don't often see dogs do that. You see hyenas do it. Look at the other two guarding it. This is the first time I've actually seen a wild dog do this. Sally, I haven't seen a wild dog go in like that for pleasure. Wild dogs often chase their prey to the water, and you will see them sort of going and really, really trying to get the whatever it is, impala, let's say. But I've never seen an impala, a wild dog, sorry, just do that. Just go in and sit for relaxation purposes. So that was my first time too. Fascinating. They all just got up and came to this tiny water point that we would have never known existed. The animals will show you the way, always. They know what they're doing out here better than we do. It's actually quite cool today, or should I say cooler. It's not that baking white hot sun like yesterday. That's hard. It's actually quite cool, it's pleasant, there's cloud cover. So that's maybe why the dogs are active. They're either hungry or it's just not that hot. They don't really need to be seeking shade right now. I don't know, I have a funny feeling that they might be still hungry. If they didn't have a big enough breakfast, like us all, they'd be hungry. I love this one's floppy ear. The ears are just cartilage, of course, so just like an elephant, or they can get damaged, just like a hyena. Once they're damaged, they will just flop over. Haley, I'm not sure what you mean by that, but in terms of the dogs, not necessarily. Sometimes it's hard to keep up with them. If they get really mobile and they go hunting through the thick stuff, you're in big trouble. They can get really, really mobile. They're the most mobile of all the animals we follow. But if they're sort of just chilling like this, just relaxing, you can spend all day with them, really. But in terms of reserves, normally wild dog sightings are very popular. Lots of people want to see them, which means that you have to sort of circulate the sightings, keep them moving, and you only get a short period of time with the animal. And in our case right now, we are on a private concession. We've got the privilege of staying at Makanyani Lodge, and it's a private part of Madikwe that no one else can drive on. You can only drive on it if you're staying at Makanyani, which we are. So we have this whole reserve to ourselves right now, which is so wonderful. We don't have to call the sighting in. We don't have to deal with other vehicles. So I hope that answered your question from both perspectives. I'm not sure which one you were asking about, but it's not unusual. I've spent hours with dogs as long as they're flat, but my goodness, when they get mobile, a lot of our cars have been damaged from following wild dogs. The stories I could tell. But they generally hunt at sunrise and sunset. They do sleep through the night and they do rest during the day. People say lions are lazy and they sleep all day, but wild dogs sleep a lot too. This one with the collar, I'm not sure if it's a male or the female. In the two packs, it's different ones that are collared. I need to have a proper look. And has really not rested since this morning. We were with them this morning, and they also, this one in particular, has really just not put its head down. Harry, I can't say I have. I think behavior doesn't really change drastically across the species. I can't comment on any differences that I've noticed between the dogs here and the dogs elsewhere. Spent time recently with them in the Central Kalahari Game Reserve, the Lowveld, Swallow. I'm trying to think everywhere I've been where I've seen dogs. But no, I don't see any behavioural differences. I'm so glad that they've actually got their heads up and they're not flat in the grass. We can actually only see two of the dogs. But all of them are here. The grass is just really long. They clearly came for a drink. And none of them likes to be left behind. When one dog moves for action, they all do follow. So they came for a drink and now they're just chilling again, which works in our favor. But it's just so nice to spend time with them. So let's just listen and enjoy this sighting for a moment or two. think they're all getting ready for a big cuddle puddle here. We are going to try and reposition just a little bit without going into the water. And Rian just reminded me that 2 of them have collars, and that makes sense because I was pretty sure I saw male genitalia, which are really quite large in wild dogs, the other day, and then just now I saw female genitalia. So that makes absolute sense that there are 2 that are collared, most likely the alpha pair. Oh, wild dogs are so unbelievably smelly. Really. I love you guys, but you pong. All good? Some of the most incredible sightings I've had have been with wild dogs. Puppies and in the Sabi Sand, just the most incredible sightings. Walking them on foot in the Central Kalahari Game Reserve. Oh, wild dogs can really give you special sightings if you really get lucky. It is all about luck, but I'm sure some of you know exactly what I'm talking about, because I'm sure some of you will also have your own content. You will also have spent time out in nature, and you will also have been lucky. So if you do have any incredible footage or content from any of your experiences in the wilds, please do send them to us. We would love to see it, and we'd love to use it on the Wild Earth platforms. So if you do want to find out more about this, please do head to the website and click on Content Creator. And you know, when you look at wild dogs, you always think about their ears. And I often wonder, how do they hear? They hear so much more than us, and they hear in a far more sort of 3-dimensional way than we do. Humans are not very good at dimensions and directions. Not compared to most animals out here, and I would just love to have their hearing. And I was reading up lately about mosquitoes, and I know we're not looking about mosquitoes, but it relates to the dogs, because the Aedes mosquito in particular is the one that gives you Zika, dengue, and yellow fever. And I've actually had dengue when I was in the Maldives, and it's really, really horrible. And that's from the Aedes mosquito. And there's a scientist that decided, is there any way that we can manipulate these mosquitoes so that we don't eradicate them, we change them, and they stop, coming for humans. And if they stop coming for humans, they'll stop spreading diseases, and we may have a chance to sort of eradicate the diseases and not the actual animal themselves. So she did lots of experiments, and she spent years and years on this. And basically, she first tried to disable one of their genes called ORCO. It's just the name of the gene. I don't know where that comes from. And that seems to be the gene that's tied entirely to the mosquito's sense of smell. So she tried to disable it by sort of causing a genetic mutation within the species that she obviously had in her lab. And when she did this, it just didn't work. The mosquitoes started to ignore human body odor, the smell, but they were still drawn to our carbon dioxide. So although they were no longer smelling us because the gene had been disabled, they're still detecting us. They're still detecting chemicals. So that didn't work. It was a bit of a fail. Then she tried to create mutant mosquitoes, if you like, that could no longer then detect the carbon dioxide, which we all produce. We breathe out carbon dioxide. That didn't work either. These insects could still easily home in on humans. So she tried 2 different things, manipulated them entirely, and it didn't work. So the result of all of her work showed that the mosquitoes really can't be thrown off with one single tactic or one single strategy, because they aren't beholden to one sense. Mosquitoes aren't surviving on just one sense. They're actually using a multitude of cues, if you like, that interact in all sorts of complicated ways. They are attracted to heat. They'll detect heat. They've got temperature receptors of warm-blooded hosts, aka humans. Then they detect carbon dioxide. Then they will also smell body odor. So there's all sorts of things going on that how they're detecting a human. It's not one single sense. And of course, I mean, these senses have been honed over millions of years of evolution. But at the end of the day, they always have a plan B. You can't just consider one sense when you're looking at an animal. You've got smell, you've got vision, you've got chemicals, you've got heat, you've got taste. And the Aedes mosquito has a plan B at every point. Every time the scientist tried to manipulate and change the situation, there was always a plan B. Then when she manipulated a plan B, there was always a plan C. So when you look at any organism, especially like a wild dog, I think you're first drawn to the ears. Because they're so Mickey Mouse-like, they're so huge and cute, and they check our cuteness factor. They're gorgeous. And the ears add to their aesthetically pleasing appearance. So we're immediately drawn to the fact that dogs use their hearing, and yes, they absolutely do. It's most likely the primary sense. But whenever I'm talking about senses, the reason I always say primary sense is because there are a lot of other senses also in use. It's never just one sense that an animal is using, and I think it's really important to recognize that. And when I read that experiment about the Aedes mosquito, I just thought it was fascinating, because yes, we really don't like mosquitoes, I know that, but it's amazing that that statement, there's always a plan B, and it can be applied to any species. And even DEET, we now know that DEET is not good for us, but DEET obviously does keep mosquitoes away. So when you spray repellent with DEET, it does seem to work. And no one really knows why to this day. It was originally suggested that it actually blocks the orco. Remember the gene responsible for the sense of smell? However, it's now thought that it just completely bamboozles them. It completely confuses all their senses, all the ones that they're using, the chemical detectors, the sense of smell, the sort of temperature receptors, and therefore they just become really, really confused in a complicated way. That they're not then they don't come to that human, they don't come to the DEET, they don't land on you, and of course they don't come from your blood. So that particular scientist is now trying to think, how can I replicate the effects of DEET in an ethical way? How can I bamboozle mosquitoes enough that they don't land on me? But either way, the point of what I'm saying is that we do live in this immense world, and whenever you look at an animal, try to see it in its entirety. Try to see every sense that it's using and every perception that will add to its Umwelt. I'm even guilty of just saying, this animal relies on this sense. I'm guilty of that, but actually that's inaccurate. They may primarily use that sense, it may be the dominant one, but it's not the one they're relying on. I should never say that, because they're relying on them all, even senses that we can't actually understand. And sometimes we get a sensory flip, if you know what I mean. If I start talking about ants crawling all over your skin, if I start talking about ants crawling all over your skin right now, you start to feel itchy. Ooh, you start to imagine them on your skin, and you really do feel itchy. The more you think about it, the itchier you'll feel. Your senses have sort of undergone a flip, because they don't match. You're feeling something just from thinking about something. So senses can get muddled, and I'm now a big believer, after really studying it extensively for the past year, that the boundaries, or the sort of clear-cut lines that we like to put around our senses, is really not so clear-cut after all. Our senses are way more complicated and way more intertwined than we realize. Especially things like taste and smell. They do get very muddled. We like to put things in boxes, and so we do. But is not always that clear cut when it comes to our sensory world. We definitely have more than 5 senses. When we're young, we're taught taste, smell, touch, sight, and hearing. It's very limited. We should make sure that we don't teach these sort of limited things to the younger generation. They're very restless. I have to stop being so cute.
It's our birthday. Join us in celebrating our Sweet 16th on the 27th of April. We will be playing our top 16 moments that we've shared together on Wild Earth, as well as all of your birthday messages on channel for the big day.
And a big thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wild Earth.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Tune in and get ready to blow out the candle with us. It's Wild Earth's sweetest birthday bash yet.
Oh man, how incredible to see some wild dogs. Of course, you know, they are one of the most endangered carnivores in the world. But just to see them in the middle of the day, spend some time with them, just chilling out. We are so lucky. And I've also just been taking it easy with the animals in Okokweyo. Of course, I've got my eyes on the Djuma Dam cam as well. But as you can see, not too much has changed with regard to change in the different species that we've had here. We've still got some springbok, zebra, oryx. We did have a few wildebeests as well. And I'm just holding my breath to see if we are going to be seeing a black unicorn or perhaps some elephants. That will be wonderful. But of course, you know, it's not that hot today. So the animals are not as motivated to constantly come down for water, to cool off, to quench their thirst. But you never know. You never know what we might still see today. We've still got some time left on Escape to Nature, and I would love to hear from all of you. If you have any questions, any comments, if you perhaps just want to share with me what you are up to today, whether you are celebrating Easter or just taking it easy today on this beautiful Sunday, I would love to hear from all of you. Of course, none of this is possible without all of you beautiful people. So definitely do ask us any questions you would like to know, whether it's about us, about the animals, about the locations. Oof, these guinea fowl are rowdy today. You see, FC is trying to ambush me now. They say their question is, who is my favorite in FC right now? I don't have any favorites. You're all my favorite. Jordan, Morgan, Tadiwa, Sipiwe, Vincent. I appreciate all of you. It's like children. You can't have favorites. No, we're not allowed to have favorites. Not allowed at all. However, I can tell you, which will not create a ruckus here in the office, but I can tell you so far, and it's only because I've met them personally, but so far my favorite naturalist would be Tess and Panda, the cameraman. But again, you know, I've met Andrew, I've met Cedric, I've met Igor, so everyone really is unique in their own way. It's very difficult. Yes, let's go with that. No, all of our directors, naturalists, tech teams, camera operators, you are all wonderful. Just like the animals, you know. Yes, I've got favorites secretly, but everyone has got something unique to offer. But speaking of which, I would love to hear from our viewers who's their favorite director or camera operator or naturalist. You're more than welcome to let us know. Or if you perhaps just have a favorite moment that we've had on Wild Earth, you are welcome to let us know. But if you don't want to, that's perfectly fine. You know, it's a very dangerous territory to be traversing on. It's like children. We all know that every parent out there does have a favorite child. But it's something you're not allowed really to say out loud. Alrighty, well, while I give you some time to ponder about that and let us know who's your favorite at Wild Earth, I'm going to send you over to Andrew in Amakhala.
Maybe pop their heads up. Hello everybody, as you can see I'm all bundled up at the moment. Good morning, my name's Andrew and I have Morgan behind the camera. Yeah, we're going to try our best this afternoon or this morning. We're going to see what is out and about on the game reserve. But yeah, there's plenty of things out here we can talk about. As you saw the other day, we had a sighting of the meerkats over here. This is where they're living. And it's also quite a nice opportunity for us just to get a little bit closer and actually have a look at the burrow system in detail over here. And it looks very well established, doesn't it? Look at all the sand that is heaped up here. So they've been doing lots of work clearing those tunnels out, making sure those bolt holes are perfectly open. Now with my experience with the meerkats, on days like today, they are more than likely going to be huddled up inside the burrow. But every now and then you do get individuals that pop their head out, almost to look out the window, if you will, to see if the conditions are okay, to maybe just try and forage a little bit. Because at the end of the day, they are insectivores. And with insectivores, they need to eat lots and lots of insects to grow and to be healthy, if you will. So even though they might be sleeping in, I have no doubt that they are pretty hungry at the moment. I'm just trying to think, how long have they actually been here? And just by looking at all these little mounds over here, it seems like this is a fairly established little site, this. But now they have been known to change burrow systems quite frequently. And one thing we must always bear in mind when it comes to denning animals is that parasites is a problem and they need to manage the parasites. So it makes a lot of sense for many reasons for them to just go to a different burrow site to avoid those parasites that might be infesting inside those tunnels. But then also they do have a lot of predators, big and small. And so for them, they want to try and avoid a routine. Because as soon as you're in the nature and you sort of do a routine, this is where predators catch on to those routines, and then they're just not going to survive as well as they normally would. Now, this is actually a great place to see the yellow mongooses as well, which are also vivarids. And basically a vivarid is an animal that is elongated and the body is built very close to the ground. So meerkat is a mongoose. And in fact, some of you might not be aware of this, but civet, African civet, which a lot of people think is a cat, but it couldn't be anything but the opposite. It's actually a mongoose. Genets are mongooses as well. Now when you look at these little heaps of sand over here, it's not only just what they've excavated, but they like to have heaps around their mound site or their burrow site so that they can use them as a sentry. Grace, good question. So they are territorial. So they have if you compare their size, I mean, they do have quite a big territory in relation to their size. So a nice, large amount or a large gang of meerkats. Say if there were, 8 or more meerkats, then they're going to have quite a big foraging area. But then the smaller the gang or the colony, then the smaller their foraging routes. But we did sort of measure it in the Kalahari when I was out there, maybe a kilometer by a kilometer, which is actually quite a large distance. And within that territory, as I've mentioned, they've got other options for burrow sites as well. So we spoke to a chap named Obot, who is actually a guide at Leeuwenbush. He's been here for years and years and years. I think he was actually born here on Amakhala. And he's got all the little tricks to the reserve. He knows where certain animals might be denning. He's got a lot of stories to tell over the years. But one thing he told us last night, or not the previous night, was that he has seen a gang of meerkats not far from this area, sort of just a little bit to the northeast of us. It's in walking distance. and he reckons that's also part of their burrow site. But it makes a lot of sense for them to have a bigger territory or have a large feeding area, and that's because, oh man, they do eat a lot of insects. When I watched the meerkats in the Kalahari, in one morning we watched the group of them. They must have caught about 6 or 7 scorpions, and they had pups, so they needed to catch large prey items like scorpions. So you can imagine, in a whole morning, 6 or 7 scorpions, how much can they eat in a month period? And because of that, sometimes resources does become a little bit scarce, and so they need to sort of venture into quite a large territory. But they can also home range out those territories if they're very desperate. And this is where potential clashes with other meerkats may occur, if there are any in the nearby area. And they can be quite vicious towards each other. I've seen them fighting before. They don't play games when they fight. Now, I was mentioning earlier on, these little mounds that you're seeing are awesome little sentry points for them. They can climb on top there and they can really look out for predators. Now, within this area that we're in now, there are so many different types of termite mounds over here. So the meerkats will actually use those termite mounds as well. It's an easy thing for them to climb up. And then there's these sort of lower growing sweet thorn bushes, which they might climb. I have seen meerkats climb on top of Vechelis, previously the acacias. Climb on top, especially if there's a pale chanting goshawk that has just flown over. You might find the meerkats that are on sentry duty, they'll climb on top of a high object and watch that pale chanting goshawk fly away. We sometimes see southern ant-eating chats often following meerkats while they forage because, there's going to be a lot of insects that may get disturbed. But then fork-tailed drongos are also associated with meerkats. Those sort of birds do like to follow them. And talking of birds, I can actually, for the first time today, hear a few. In this wind, I think some of the birds are quite braving it to just get their song out there. I can hear a bokmakiri and a Cape Longclaw. Not too far away there is a southern ant-eating chat, but it's just on the other side of a termite mound. Yeah, I'm just hoping we see one little head pop up, as they do it when you least expect it. Ultimately, it's the mornings are the best times actually to come to this mound before they wake up. And then you watch them just sunning themselves and a little bit of social side where they might groom each other, play fight with each other, and then set off for their day of foraging.
Djuma. As you can see, we've got some water thickneys just hanging out and taking things easy. The sun has come out a little bit more, so it's definitely heating up here in Djuma. And as I said, it seemed like it's going to be overcast, but then again, the weather in Greater Kruger is really, you can experience 4 seasons in one day. But you can see they are definitely not minding the weather at all. Just catching a little bit of sun. And of course, when birds are just standing in the sun, sometimes they'll actually open their wings, and that heat will actually irritate some of the parasites and things on their actual wings. But I think for now they are just taking it easy, having a typical Sunday. And furthermore, it has been rather... Woo! Sorry, the wind is picking up a little bit. But furthermore, it's been really peaceful here at Djuma. Of course, we've had our antelope around, our impalas and inyalas. And our hippo is still in the water. But other than that, no other visitors yet. So we'll continue being patient, see who else comes along. But it's just really so amazing just to be out here and spend some time with the animals. The birds, the wind, the calls, the insects. Hopefully with the sun coming out, we'll have some animals coming down to the water to cool off or to get a drink. But to be honest with you, the elephants have been scarce in the Sabi Sand. For me at least. I think in total we saw less than 20 elephants. And generally in the Sabi Sand you find elephants around every single corner. But that's the beauty about rain. Wherever you find yourself, you know, whether we are in Okukoyo or Djuma, Madikwe, whenever there is rain, there's food and water available for the animals really anywhere in the park or the reserve. So they are no longer restricted just to come to one area for water. Just like the leopards, you know, they don't have to go to a physical water hole to get water. They can just, there's a lot of puddles, specifically in the Sabi Sands, that are really just everywhere. Oh, and we've got an oxpecker on the hippo. Earlier on, we did actually have a terrapin on the hippo's nostrils as well. And they really are incredible. And it's amazing to see how tolerant these animals are. You know, whether it's the impalas, the rhinos. This is literally called a rhino bird in Afrikaans, a renostervoeltjie. No, that's ticklish. Get off. Just trying to, yes, this is a red-billed oxpecker, one of the more common ones. You do also get the yellow-billed oxpecker here. But interestingly enough, at one stage a few years ago, they were critically endangered due to the fact that they do sit on animals. And I mean, they are not going to ask an animal before they perch on them, "Excuse me, are you being controlled by people? Did they dip you in poison to prevent ticks and parasites?" So at one stage, it was a rather massive problem, particularly in southern Africa, where they ingested a lot of that poison and their numbers decreased rapidly. But luckily, there are more eco-friendly methods that the farmers use nowadays, you know, to treat their animals, whether it's domestic cows or sheep or goats, whatever the case is. But they are wonderful to see, and for the most part it will be a mutual relationship or symbiotic relationship, as we call it, Because right now the hippo's benefiting, so is the bird. The hippo's getting cleansed. Oof, sorry for the wind. But it can unfortunately also be parasitic goodness, where they will keep opening up a wound for that blood, and that animal does not have the opportunity to actually heal. Fiona, good afternoon, good morning still. Thank you so much for your question. You would like to know how far do hippos travel away from the water when they are feeding? Fiona, it can literally be kilometers. It can be 1 or 2 kilometers. It can literally just be around the water hole. Everything pertaining to rain and water influences animals' behaviors. So hippos specifically, of course, if it's a bull, he'll be territorial and he'll move around and traverse around at night to mark his territory, to engage in contact with other hippo bulls and actually challenge them if he feels the need to. Like this hippo, if it is Dewey, he often traverses between Gowrie Dam, Treehouse Dam, Twin Dams. But it also depends. Of course, hippos are water-dependent animals. And I know a few years ago in Kruger, there were a lot of hippos lost, unfortunately, because there was such a massive drought. And just like in a lot of the parks and the reserves, yes, some of them are man-made and they are able to actually fill them up for the animals, but not all of them are. So I remember during those times, the hippos actually traversed so far away, and eventually they did die due to not having water, due to not having enough food and nutritional value. Because it's a massive animal, you can imagine they eat a lot of grass. And the thing specifically with hippos and zebras, when they are feeding, they actually tear the grass off. So yes, they do need a lot of food, but they need water, not just to drink, to actually live in as well. So it can be literally, this hippo, for instance, when he goes out, as soon as it cools off, he can literally just traverse around the dam and feed, move around, mark his territory, and then go back in. But depending on also whether he needs females, he perhaps is looking for female in estrus, that will also influence it. So it can be a lot of kilometers.
Get ready for our upcoming Ask Me Anything, featuring the vivacious Tess Woolger.
But I do want to show you the moisture content.
Tess is uber knowledgeable in African vertebrate biodiversity, adding to her already impressive credentials.
So these lions must have moved across the top end of Djuma this morning.
Hop onto your sofa with your Easter chocolate in hand on April 9th for the opportunity to ask her absolutely anything.
Hello, beautiful. Again, I do apologize for the shakes. The wind has picked up a little bit here in Djuma now. But I'm sure all of you are familiar with this beautiful bird. It is the woodlands kingfisher, and we have to embrace and appreciate them while we can. One of these days they will be moving on again. And as I was just mentioning, everything with regard to water motivates and encourages animals to move. So that is why the kingfishers are eventually going to move on, because there's not insects around for them anymore. So then they move to other areas where it's warmer, where there's actually rainfall as well as insects, just like the Abdom storks that we've been seeing in Okukuyo. And just like we'll be seeing with a lot of the other animals in all of our locations. Okukuyo, Djuma, Madikwe, Amakala. As soon as the rain pattern changes, the pattern of the animals also change. And that does not mean that it becomes predictable, that the movements become predictable and we know where to find them. Just like everything else and every other day in nature, we always have to be open-minded and expect the unexpected. But you'll definitely see a change. I know for myself, on my previous game reserve in wintertime was cat time. We saw a lot of leopards, because then the grass is not as long, the bush is not as lush, and you can actually see them moving around. Yes, they do still camouflage with the dead grass, but it actually becomes way easier to see the actual movements in the bush. If you have, however, just joined us, welcome to Escape to Nature, and welcome to the beautiful Gowrie Dam in Djuma. My name is Lisa and I'm the waterhole naturalist, of course, keeping all of you posted on everything happening at Okukuyo as well as Djuma. But we've had a brilliant day overall. We've had some beautiful antelope here, we've done some birding here in Djuma, as well as have had the entertainment of a hippo giving us its bottom. But we expect nothing less. And in Okukuyo, it has been rather productive as well, with all of the general zebras and the wildebeest and the oryx and the springbok. And on top of all of that, Lauren has had a beautiful pack of wild dogs in Madikwe, which is always a blessing. But as I say, all of these animals are just incredible to be spending some time with on this beautiful Sunday. So we do still have a little bit of time left on Escape to Nature. So if you've got any last questions or comments, of course you are more than welcome to send those through. We love hearing from all of you. And if you are watching on the app or on the website, remember you can just register, and that way you can get in touch with us. Otherwise, if you follow us on YouTube, you can always just subscribe, and that way we can keep you posted with everything you might be missing out on. Oof, but what a beautiful day in Djuma. And isn't it incredible to think that there might be a pride of lions around right now? There might be a leopard in a tree, under a bush. We never know what's out here. The other day when we went on safari as well, we literally went in the middle of the day. And we saw the squirrel ferociously alarm calling constantly, and there must have been a snake, but unfortunately we never saw it. But I always say, especially at night, can you imagine what happens out here? Things that we aren't even able to see. animals that are being ambushed and hunted, animals that might be creating new life. Lighting a candle, especially if you are in South Africa. No lights for you, you need a candle. And the one thing that I found very interesting, which a lot of you might not know, because of course, you know, we are fairly well prepared with regards to generators and all of that, the UPSs for the cameras and everything. But the Sabi Sand have way more load shedding than we do, for instance, in Johannesburg. So they've got load shedding, and then there's also, I can't remember what my aunt called it. I think it was load reduction. So that is like load shedding, except they don't get told. The power just gets put off. And then they don't know when it comes back. But there is a shocking amount of load shedding happening in the bush, which is odd. You'd think they'd sort of leave the people in the bush, the cities with all of the companies and businesses and buildings and everything that you can understand. But that's how we learn every single day. Morgan is saying she wants to be that dead log or tree stump that was just lying there, because nothing will eat you. You can see everything. However, Morgan, I don't think you considered the fact that everything probably urinates on you, so... But yes, I always think, oh man, I wish I could just camp out in the wilderness and just sit and watch the animals. I thoroughly enjoyed that story that Ben told us on for International Storytelling Day, when he was watching, well, really he was doing astronomy and taking some photographs and everything, and he just had this random black rhino walking up to him, and eventually they almost had an altercation. But can you imagine what happens out here at night? Can you imagine how scary it must be, knowing that a leopard can be literally anywhere, a lion, and it's the same during the daytime, but of course they see a little better. Oh, hello. Look at your tiny head. Oh man, I can't wait to see these chicks. Hopefully I do. We'll have to wait and see. But earlier on, we were talking a little bit about, you know, the various animal. Ooh, hello, Jojo. The various creatures and animals and primates and everything that can tell us when there are animals around. So vervet monkeys, those are one of the obvious ones specifically for predators. Snakes too, but something like lion or leopard. It's always good to listen to the vervet monkeys. Even baboons. Baboons will also be good alarm calls. But then also your francolins, your guinea fowls. Oxpeckers are brilliant indicators of rhinos and buffaloes. So if you are perhaps on foot out in the bush, if you hear a couple of oxpeckers flocking together, generally that'll indicate either a herd of buffalo or rhino mud wallowing. And then squirrels as well. Squirrels will also indicate when they see a snake or a leopard or a lion. They've got this very high-pitched call and they fluff their tail constantly. But just amazing. And I know a lot of our zoomies use that as well. they'll often let us know, listen, we've got some impalas or nyalas barking, something must be around, or waterbuck perhaps snorting. It's so amazing to know that everything out here is interconnected and really influences one another. From this flower to the tree, to the monkeys, to the squirrel.
Okay, so we have taken a bit of a drive, and we thought it'd be quite nice if we can talk a little bit about some of the trees that we're seeing out here. And this is definitely one of the more common trees we find out here, and I have done a bit of a talk on it before, but always bear in mind that there are going to be new people every single day. But this is a white milkwood tree, and they are really, really beautiful trees. One of my favorites, but I've got so many. And we've been battling with a lot of rain. At the moment there's a little bit of a gap, and the wind is still pushing, but we're not keen to go back and get shelter. We want to stay out. And so what we've been doing is we've actually been taking shelter under the milkwood trees, which is quite good for us. So providing us with good cover. They are lovely trees. There's a lot of history behind the milkwood trees, especially in this Eastern Cape area. And the Western Cape, there's an area called Mossel Bay. And if you ever get a chance to go out there, or maybe some of you are living there, but if you get a chance to get out there, ask the locals, where's the post office tree? And they'll point you in the direction of where it is. But it's interesting that they get that nickname, the post office tree, because back in the day, with the Portuguese sailors that used to travel along the coastline, the sailors would want to leave letters to their loved ones. And the way they did it was they would write a letter, and then they would tie up an old shoe. Oh, that was pretty strong gust there. They would tie up an old shoe that they didn't want anymore, and they would leave the letter inside there. Then their loved ones would come to the tree and collect the shoe, and inside being a letter that they used to read and also respond. And that's why they call them the post office trees. And then also they also get a name, a golf ball tree, because in the days of the 1820 settlers coming from England, they used to make golf balls from these trees by extracting the latex or milk, and that would almost become like a rubber ball that they could use to make or to play golf, which is very interesting. Good for also tanning pots, or glazing pots, should I rather say, and then tanning leather. Very interesting trees. Okay, our lens is getting a little bit wet here, so Morgan is just going to dry it off here. You should see a cloth, there it is. Very important that we keep this equipment in tip-top condition, otherwise then we can't do what we do. And there we go, nice and clean again. Now you're going to notice the tops of these trees have got a bit more thicker of a canopy than some of the lower parts of these trees. Giraffes really do enjoy the white milkwoods, and they've taken onto them quite well. And if you have a look, you can actually see almost the browse line of where the giraffes have managed to feed on those trees. They do it also with the Karoo boer beans, the Scotia. And next time Ralph manages to get a gap in the rain, I hope maybe we can sort of talk about that Scotia tree that's out there, which has got this beautiful top, which has also been trimmed away by the giraffes over time, feeding on those trees. Always reminds me of those sitcoms from back in the day, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air with the afro hairstyles. And that's exactly what it looks like with some of the trees out here. They are stunning trees. They take a long time to grow. I'm not exactly sure of what their lifespan is, but you're looking at 500-600 years old with some of them. It's difficult to say how old these ones are, but they've been here for a while. Elephants have had a go at the trees as well. You'll notice some branches on the ground there, and they sometimes snap the trees just trying to get to some of the branches that they can't necessarily reach. And then also, if elephants have got a baby calf with them, and they'll break trees down so that the calves can eat some leaves, and that's what's probably happened here. Didi, you are very welcome. From what I know in relation to what I still need to learn out with most of the trees in just the whole of South Africa, there's so much to learn, and we are just scratching the tip of the surface. And that's the lovely thing about trees is, on a day like today when it's there's so many trees that we're able to talk about, and not so many animals because they're all hiding away, then it definitely gives us an opportunity to fall back on some of the vegetation. They don't go anywhere, they can't fly away, so we can always talk about them. Now, some of the trees, especially the white milkwoods, because they take a long time to grow, every now and then they form these natural cavities in the trunks of the trees, and all sorts of birds like to go into those cavities. Like the black-collared barbets, which are quite prevalent out here, some of the woodpeckers. And it's quite sad, we don't see too many of the crowned hornbills out here. More towards the coastline you see a bit more, and then also trumpeter hornbill by the coastline. Every now and then we get lucky with the hornbills out here, but they select natural cavities in the trees, so these would be like perfect and ideal nesting sites for some of those hornbills. And they are very protected. We actually have a white milkwood in our garden that's causing a little bit of trouble. It's growing on our fences and it's pushing the fences down. But now, nowadays, conservation has really stepped in with a lot of the vegetation, and some of the trees are incredibly protected out here. You are not allowed to just cut trees down like you could maybe 30 years ago. Those days have come to an end now. Right, so Morgan has spotted a bird. We're hoping this bird is going to stick around. Let's see. There we go. Now, this is the southern ant-eating chat that I mentioned earlier. And there's one that is calling at the moment. You just can't really hear it. Mostly brown, but they do have a bit of white to the wings. And as soon as they take off in flight, you get to see the flash of the brown and the white, or the black and the white. And for these grassveld birds that generally are quite camouflaged and their coloring is a bit dull and drab, they need to have some sort of a way to display for courtship. So usually it's a beautiful song or some sort of a display when they fly, much like the ant-eating chat. And the general rule in nature is, the birds that live in the forest, they are usually quite pretty and colorful, and they don't really need a spectacular call. They're doing everything by sort of the visual side of things. But now with these grassveld birds, it's a little bit opposite. They need to have some sort of a way to display and then a beautiful call because they lack that in beautiful colorations. Okay, our trees are still here, not going anywhere. Now, this is a landmark area on the game reserve, and you ask any guide out here where the northern milkwoods are, or if we had a sighting here and we spoke about the northern milkwoods, they would know exactly where we are. There's also a milkwood in the south of us called the southern milkwoods, and that's the milkwoods that myself and Morgan were getting some nice cover from earlier on. Now there's actually a tree out here in Amakhala that I really want to talk about. Just some of the places where it grows are very tricky with signal, and that's one of the sneezewood trees out here. They're not really common anymore as what they used to, because many of them got cut down, and their main use was for furniture and fencing posts, believe it or not, with the sneezewoods. And because of it, some of the big ones were chopped down a good few years ago, and it takes hundreds and hundreds of years for those trees to grow up and get big again. So often, before you cut a tree down, think of the impact that you might be creating without even realizing. Okay, we have a little bit more drizzle that's coming our way, so we're going to try and look for a bit more shelter. Let's go to Lisa and Ukukuyo in the meanwhile.
Thank you, Andrew. Hopefully your weather clears, but again, you never know. Sometimes we think, it's not going to be a lot of fun out on safari in the rain, and then it surprises us. We see a lot more than we would generally. But it could also, of course, go the other way. So good luck. Hopefully you gentlemen see a lot of animals and a lot of crazy, amazing interactions today. This side, we've still got our impalas, our springbok, our oryx, zebras. No elephants yet, unfortunately, but that's perfectly fine. We've had a wonderful day, and it really has been amazing all around. And so peaceful. I've really just enjoyed listening to everything today, all of the birds. I know we often say this as naturalists. I mean, James has spoken about this taste. But I wonder when they will design something where you can actually smell what you are watching. Technology is so ahead of us, so I don't think it will be too long. I remember one of my favorite rides when I was working at Disney was, I can't remember the specific ride's name, but I know it was at Epcot, where you go like right around the world, and as soon as you sort of go through Africa, they spray you with these grass seeds and the smell of everything, and they've got a ride very similar as well, the Banshee ride in Pandora. And then you sit on a banshee and this whole screen opens in front of you and you fly through Pandora. And as you are going past the water, you get sprayed with water. How incredible would that be? To literally smell as an elephant is defecating, as they are mud bathing. That was probably one of the best smells I had now while I was in the Sabi Sand, because a lot of the roads are still very, very, very wet. And you could actually smell that freshness in the soil, the dung, just everything, the flowers, the grass. Hopefully one of these days we find ourselves in a world where we can literally share everything virtually with one another. However, I don't know if we... if we want to share the carcass smells with all of you. For those of you that have not actually experienced that, it is not the best thing to smell in the world.
We hope that when you watch Wild Earth, you will fall in love with nature. We know that our explorers share a passion for nature and want to make a difference. Wild Earth Schools is back. Sign up to be an explorer, and your subscription will help us reach the future conservationists of our planet. Invest in something that truly matters, encouraging children to care for our beautiful wild earth. Wild Earth Explorers, make a difference.
Well, that was definitely a treat. We do not see the jackals all that often. However, that being said, I think it's like leopards in Djuma. They camouflage so well, so they are most probably around. Unless they are moving, it's difficult to see them. You can just see it at about 10, 11 o'clock, just moving off into the distance. Oh, it is here. Ooh, it has become swimming time. It is. My grandma is apparently also having an Easter Sunday. There we are, our Egyptian geese. And as you can see, they are still a family. They are still all together. For those of you that are not too familiar with this location in particular, a couple of months ago we had the parents and they had 3 very fluffy and tiny goslings. And it seems like we are missing one, if I'm looking correctly. That's not an Egyptian goose, that's a dabchick that definitely is trying to become an Egyptian goose. Dabchicks are also referred to as the little grebes. Oh, there's the other Egyptian goose. But unfortunately, we are coming to that very sad time of the day where we have to say cheerio and goodbye for now. I hope you have all had a wonderful day with all of us. And that you've enjoyed all of the animals and the interactions. Hopefully we will see you again tomorrow for Escape to Nature. I will be back. And hopefully we see a lot more tomorrow. We've really had a very productive day, even if we did not see any elephants or black unicorns. That is perfectly fine. It has been a wonderful day with all of these beautiful animals, the zebras, oryx, springbok, and of course the beautiful wild dogs. Andrew gave us a bit of education on some of the trees in Amakhala as well. So we hope you have thoroughly enjoyed today's Escape to Nature with us. Hopefully you learned something. And as always, thank you so much for also teaching us every single day. We really appreciate it. But whether you are celebrating Easter today or just having a normal Sunday, I hope it is a beautiful and peaceful one. Remember to join us this afternoon on Sunset Safari for the Easter egg hunt that the naturalist will be embarking on. And I hope everyone has a beautiful rest of their Sunday and weekend. If you are traveling, please do so safely. And I will see all of you beautiful people again tomorrow. But for myself, Lisa, from Lauren in Madikwe, and of course Andrew in Amakhala, thank you so much from all of us. Woo! Did you see that springbok? Woo, very excited. But we'll see you again tomorrow. Have a beautiful Sunday. Happy Easter if you are celebrating. And we definitely hope you have a lot of fun with us this afternoon on Sunset Safari. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much for today.